Hello everybody! In this video, we will start solving the Cambridge 2023 competition. In the first question, we have this diagram and we were asked about the order of rotational symmetry of this diagram. First, what is the order of rotational symmetry? The order of rotational symmetry of a shape is the number of times it can be rotated around a full circle and still look the same. So, in one rotation, how many times can we get the same look? We will put a point here and rotate this shape, and when we come back to the same point, it means we have got a complete round. When we round it from 0 to 90 degrees, we do not get the same basic shape. And when we round it from 90 to 180 degree, we get the same basic shape, so we put 1 on our hand. And when we round it from 180 to 270 degree, we do not get the same basic shape. And when we round it from 270 to 360 degree, we get the same basic shape. So we also put 1 on our hands. So the total becomes 2. Therefore, the diagram has rotational symmetry of order 2. Now we turn to the part B. We are asked in this question, draw all the lines of symmetry. First, what is the line of symmetry? A line of symmetry is the line that divides a shape or an object into two equal and symmetrical parts. As we can see, we have two equal and symmetrical parts, so this line is the line of symmetry. And as we can see, we have two equal and symmetrical parts, so this line is also a line of symmetry. The second question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, he told us that there is a film that lasts 2 hours and 50 minutes and the film ends at 23:05. And he asked us to find the start time of the film. So, we have the duration of the film, and we also have the time the film ends, and we are required to look for the time the film started. In this case, we can move the time back 2 hours and 50 minutes, and then we can find out what time the film starts. Or another way, we can subtract 23 hours and 5 minutes from the 2 hours and 50 minutes. This way, we put the film end time at the top, the film duration below it, and the minutes below each other, as well as hours. We subtract the minutes first. We will solve the third question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, we have a cuboid and we are asked to find the total surface area of this cuboid. As we know that the cuboid has length, width and height. And as we see, the cuboid consists of 6 faces. In order to obtain the area of the cuboid, we must add the areas of all 6 faces. As we see, this and this have the same area, so we can write them in this form. And also this and this have the same area, so we can write them like this. And also this and this. In the end, we can take the two common factors and get this answer. Summary of this explanation: when we are asked to find the total surface area of the cuboid, we can simply apply this rule. We will solve the fourth question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, we are asked to find the value of v when u equal 4 and t equal minus 7. Quite simply, we will replace u with its value, which is 4. And in place of t, we will also replace it with its value, which is minus 7. So we have that v equal 4 minus 9.8 times multiply by minus 7. We should first start by multiplying. And when we multiply two numbers together, it is best to first start by multiplying their sign, which is always the sign to the left of the number. So we look to the left of 9.8, we have minus, and we also look to the left of 7 as well, we have minus. And when we multiply them together, we get plus. So we put a plus. Now we multiply 9.8 by 7. So the answer is 68.6. Now we add them together and we get 72.6. We will solve the 5th and 6th questions of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In the 5th question, we are asked to simplify d power 8 over d power 2. Quite simply, we can use this rule and the answer becomes like this, which is d power 6. We now move to the 6th question. In this question, he tells us that at the end of the day, a shopkeeper has 12 tins of cat food left. This is 3 over 13 of the number he had at the beginning of the day. We are required to calculate the number of tins he had at the beginning of the day. As we see, we were able to convert the given into an equation in this form. And now we are required to obtain the x. When we have this form of equation, we can cross multiply, and now we have to get rid of the number 3. So we divide by 3. Then we get the answer for x. We will start solving the 7th question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, we have this table and tell us that a spinner has 5 sides. Each side is painted red, blue, green, yellow, and orange. The table shows some of the probabilities of the spinner landing on each color. We are first required to complete this table. We have to remember that all the probabilities in the table must sum to 1. Now we add these numbers and get this equation. Next we move 0.89 to after the equal. As we know, when we change the place of the number from before to after the equal or vice versa, the sign of the number change. Because the sign to 0.89 is positive, so it becomes after the equal negative. And finally, we get the probability of the orange color. Now we move to part B, which tells us that Dan spins the spinner once. What is required of us is to find the probability that the spinner lands on red or blue. As it appears before us in the table, the probability for red is 0.3 and the probability for blue is 0.16. And as we see in the question, he says red or blue. That word or in the word of probabilities is translated plus. So we have 0.3 plus 0.16 and we get the answer. We will solve the 8th question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. What is required of us in this question is to fully describe the single transformation that maps triangle A onto triangle B. When he tells us transformation, four things must come to mind: translation, enlargement, reflection, and rotation. Translation is moving the shape without any other change, meaning without changing its size and also without rotating it. And every point of the shape must move the same distance in the same direction. And the translation does not apply here to this triangle. Now we move to enlargement. Enlargement, this means making it bigger or smaller. And this does not apply here because they are the same size. This means that they are not enlargement. We now move to reflection. Reflections are when you reflect a shape like it is in the mirror. And this also does not apply here. Finally, we come to rotation. A rotation is a transformation in which the object is rotated about a fixed point. As it appears before us, rotation occurs. This means that it is rotation, center 0, 0. We can determine the center through the perpendicular bisector, like this. Now we have to determine if clockwise or anti-clockwise. The shortest route is from here, which represents the clockwise direction, and its degree is 90. We'll solve the 9th question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, he tells us that the distance time graph shows information about Kai's journey from home to the office. What is required of us in part A is to calculate the average speed in km per hour for Kai's journey from home to the office. When we are asked about average speed, we can directly use this rule, which is average speed equal total distance over total time. So the total distance from home to office is 65 km minus 0 km. And the total time from home to office is 12 o'clock minus 10 o'clock, which is 2 hours. So we get an average speed answer. We now move to part B, which tells us that when Kai arrives at the office, he finds his meeting is cancelled. He immediately returns home at a constant speed of 50 km per hour. What is required of us is that complete the distance time graph to show his journey home. As long as it tells us the constant speed, it means that the line will be straight, and it will also start from here. Because after he goes to the office, he immediately returns home. So the line starts from here. Now we want to know where the line will end when he returns home. Naturally, the end of the line is on this line because he wants to return to his home. Its end could be here or here or here or anywhere, but on this line. And to know its location, we must know the total time it took from the office to home. And to determine that time, we can use the same rule, but now we want to calculate the total time. So total time is equal distance over speed. It gives us 1.3, which is 1 hour and 0.3. So we convert 0.3 to minutes and we get 18 minutes. So we have 1 hour 18 minutes, which is the time it took him from the office to home. But we want to know when he came home. So we have to add 1 hour and 18 minutes to 12 noon. So 12 o'clock. And we get that he came home at 13 hour and 18 minutes. So 13 hour, 18 minutes. Meaning this is the end of the line. We will solve the 10th question of the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. It tells us in this question that you must show all your working and give your answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. When we have this form, it can be written in this way. And it is not necessary to write this, but just for clarification. Now we can directly add these numbers together. So we get 7. And add the fraction together, but in order to be able to add the fraction, we must convert them to the same denominator, which is easier to convert 4 to 12. We multiply the denominator, which is 4, by 3. And always, when we multiply the denominator by a number, it is necessary to multiply the numerator by the same number. And thus, we get the same denominator, which is 12. Now, we can add the numerator, so we get 14. And as we see, we can do simplify because 14 and 12 are divided by 2. And when doing simplify, we get 7 plus 7 over 6, which is the same as 8, 1 over 6. We will begin to solve the 11th question for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, there are 3 sets. This set is the largest, which includes the set P and Q. We are required in the part A complete the Venn diagram. We also notice that this part for the intersection between P and Q. First, we'd better start by placing the intersection element between P and Q. We also notice that in the set P we have E, and also in Q we have E. So we put E here. And also in the sets P and Q we have G and R. So we put G and R here. Now we will continue with the things intersection between the big set and set P. They must be placed here. We notice that we have A, B, and L. So we put them here. We do not forget that when we put something in a Venn diagram, we cross it out from the sets so as not to write it twice. Now we will continue with the things are intersection between the big set and the Q. We put them here. As we noted that we have M, O, T, and Y are intersection, so we put them here, and in this way we have finished part A. But if we have anything left in the big set, we put it outside the circles. But in this question, we have nothing left. We now move to part B. We are required to shade the region A prime enter B. What I mean by A prime is the complement of A. First, we must know where A prime is located, as its location includes everything except A, because A prime is the complement of A, so that we can determine its location. Now we want to know the intersection between A prime and B. As we note that the intersection between A prime and B is this part. Thus, we have answered this question. We will solve the 12th question for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. This question tells us that the position vector of A is 5, 3, and vector BA 4, 8. Show that the magnitude of the vector OB equal 5.1, correct to 1 decimal place. When we want to obtain the magnitude of the vector, we can simply use the rule for the magnitude of the vector, which is radical xb minus xo square plus yb minus yo square. And in order to be able to apply the rule, we must first determine the coordinates for O and B. The coordinate for O is 0, 0 because it is the origin. As for the coordinate for B, we can obtain it through the point A and the vector BA. As we know that the rule for the vector is in this form. We have the point A and the vector BA, and we want to obtain the coordinate for B, so we get it in this form. Now we put it here in this rule. Then we get the magnitude of the vector OB. We will solve questions 13 and 14 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. We will start with the question 13, which is very easy. It just wants us to calculate radical 42 plus 3 power 0.4, and we will get the answer quickly. Now we move to question 14. It asks us to write 0.581 as a fraction. You must show all your work and give your answer in its simplest form. As we see, this number is a recurring decimal and is written in this form. But for brevity, it is written in this form. As we know that the form of the fraction is in this form, we must have a numerator and a denominator. In order to be able to convert this number, which is a recurring decimal number, into a fraction, we must follow these steps. First, we must obtain 0.581 without a point. I mean that we put the point here. And in order to do that, we must multiply it by 1000. The second step, we must also separate the numbers that are recurring and non-recurring. And in order to do that, we must multiply it by 10. The third step is to subtract them from each other and get this form. Thus, we have converted the recurring number to fraction. Now we can simplify to get the final answer. We will solve question 15 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, he tells us that the number of trees in a forest is decreasing exponentially at a rate of 1.75% per year. 11 years ago, there were 980 trees. We are required to calculate the number of trees in the forest now. Give your answer correct to the nearest integer. For this type of question, we can use this rule, which is y equal a 1 minus b power x, wherein y is the final amount, a is the origin amount, b is the decay factor, and x is the amount of time that has passed. In place of a, we put 980, and in place of v, we put the rate, which is 1.75 over 100. And in place of x, we put the time, which is 11 years. And we will get the number of trees in the forest now. We will solve question 16 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. This question tells us that the volume of a cylinder is 1970 cubic centimeter. The height of the cylinder is 12.8 centimeter. We are required to calculate the radius of the cylinder. First of all, we must write the rule for the volume of cylinder, which is V equal pi r square h. But we have the answer for the volume and height and pi, and we want to get the radius. With all ease, we get the answer for r2, r power 2. But we want to the r, so we want to radius. So we must get rid of the square. We put radical on both sides, So radical and square get rid of each other. And here we get radius. We will solve question 17 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, we are asked to rearrange the formula to make m the subject. R equal to m minus k over m. This means that we are required to get the answer for m in this form. In this case, we can do cross multiply, so we put this m here multiplied by r. Now we get rid of the parentheses by entering the 2. So we get this form since we want to the m. So we put m together before or after equal. So we put m together. Since we have a plus 2m after equal, so it becomes minus 2m before the equal. So we get this form. Now we take the m common factor, and because we have multiply here, we can bring the r minus 2 down and get the answer for m. We will begin by solving question 18 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. This question tells us that y is inversely proportional to the cube root of x plus 5 when x equals 3, y equals 12. What is required of us is that find y when x equals 22. We can convert this writing into mathematical writing, so we get this form. But if we read the question, find y when x equals 22, we have an answer to x and we are required to get y. But we have a small problem, which is to get k first, and we put the answer here. We can get k through this given, because in this given we have the answer to x equals 3 and y equals 12. So we put 3 in place of x and we put 12 in place of y, so we can get k easily in this way. Now we can get the y when the x is 22. So we put the answer to k in place of k, and the answer of x in the place of x. And here we have obtained y when x is 22. We will solve question 19 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. We are asked to solve the equation x2 plus 5x minus 7 equals 0. You must show all your working and give your answers correct to 2 decimal places. As we see, we have a quadratic equation. In order for us to solve and obtain the solutions, we must obtain the answer to the discriminant, which is in this form. A is the number that multiplies x2, B is the number that multiplies x, and C is the number that is alone. It is like this. Now we put the value of A, B, and C here at the discriminant. So we get a positive answer. This means that we have 2 real solutions. In this way, and now we put everything at its value and get the solutions. Now we will solve question 20 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. In this question, we have fx equals 6x minus 7, gx equals x power minus 3. What is required of us in part A? Find fx plus 2. Give your answer in its simplest form. In order to be able to solve the question, we must use the given with f, which is fx equals 6x minus 7. In place of x, we put x plus 2. And now we insert the 6 into the parentheses and we get this answer. Now we move to part B, that is required of us. Find f minus 1x. What I mean by f minus 1x is the inverse function of fx. And we can get it in this way. The first step is in the place of fx, we put x, and in the place of x, we put y. The second step, we want to get the answer to y. So we get it in this way. The third step, in the place of y, we put f minus 1x. We now move to part C, that is required of us find x when gx equal f22. Quite simply, in place of gx, we put it as answer in the given. And in place of f22, we put it as answer which we get in this way. X power minus 3 is equal to 1 over x power 3. And in order to get the x, we enter the cube root and we get the answer 4x. We will solve question 21 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. We are required to simplify 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 over 4x2 minus 9. In order to be able to simplify, we must first convert them to the factorized form. We have in the numerator quadratic equation. This is the form of the factorized that we must obtain. A is the number multiplied by x2, and x1 and x2 are the solutions. This means that we must obtain the solutions and we put them here. And as we know, in order to get the solutions for the quadratic equation, we must first get the discriminant, which is in this form. And because the discriminant is positive, this means that we have two real solutions in this form. Now we put everything at its value and get the solutions. Now we put them here in this form. We have transformed the quadratic equation into the form of factorize. Now we move to the denominator. We must also transform it into factorize. As we notice, it is similar to a square minus b square, which is a minus b, a plus b. In this way, we have transformed it into factorize. Now we can do simplify. As we observe, we have 2x minus 3 in the numerator and denominator. So we can cross them out, and thus we have obtained the final answer. We will solve question 22 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. This question tells us that these are the first four terms of a sequence: 2.75, 6, 11.25, 20. The nth term of this sequence is 1 over 4 n power 3 plus a n power 2 plus bn. What is required of us? Calculate the value of a and the value of b. We can solve the question by taking advantage of the given. Here it tells us that these are the first four terms of sequence. This means that in n equal 1, we have 2.75. In n equal 2, we have 6. In n equal 3, we have 11.25. And in n equal 4, we have 20. What is meant by this is that if we put 1 in place of n, we get an answer of 2.75. And if we put 2 in place of n, we get 6. And if we put 3 in place of n, we get 11.25. And if we put 4 in place of n, we get 20. We also see that we have a system composed of two unknowns, a and b, and they have four equations. When we have two unknowns, it is sufficient that we have two equations. We can choose any two equations and use substitution or elimination to obtain a and b. I will choose this and this. As we see that we get the answer is easy. We will solve question 23 for the Cambridge IGCSE 2023 competition. This question tells us that a train travels between two stations. The distance between the stations is 220 km, correct to the nearest kilometer. The speed of the train is 125 km per hour, correct to the nearest 5 km per hour. We are required to calculate the upper bound for the time the journey takes. Give your answer in hours and minutes. When it is stated that the distance between the stations is correct to the nearest kilometer, it means that the distance is rounded to the nearest whole kilometer. In this case, the actual distance may be slightly more or less than 220 km, but it is reported as 220 km to the nearest kilometer for simplicity and ease of communication. But he wants us to calculate the upper bound for the time the journey takes. So we take the largest distance, which is 220 plus 0.5. And also for speed, when it is stated that the speed of the train is correct to the nearest 5 km per hour, it means that the actual speed may be slightly more or less than 125 km per hour. But it is reported as 125 km per hour to the nearest 5 km per hour increment for the simplicity and ease of communication. But he wants us to calculate the upper bound for the time the journey takes. So we take the smallest speed, which is 125 minus 2.5. Now we use the rule for time, which is like this, and put everything at its value and get the final answer. After we got the answer, we can divide it in this way so that we can write it in a way that contain hours and minutes. The numbers after the point we multiply by 60 in order to convert from hours to minutes. And in this way, we have obtained the final answer.